Hello and welcome. Today we are doing a comparison test between two content creation powerhouses, the DJI Pocket 3, which is what I'm filming this introduction on right now, and we'll be comparing it to this guy, this Sony ZV-1, one of the most popular content creation cameras out there. Which one will come out on top for video content creation? Well, stay tuned and find out. So this is my Sony ZV-1, which shortly after I acquired it, very quickly became my go-to camera for YouTube content creation. In fact, normally I'd be using it to record this introduction right now. And there really is a lot to like about this camera. It takes excellent quality 4K video, it has good onboard audio, but more importantly it also has an external microphone connection for really high quality audio. It has a flip out and articulating 3-inch screen. It also has a 3x zoom lens, and all in all, I really can't think of a better package when it comes to overall performance in such a compact and pocketable size. That is perhaps until now. Now, when DJI introduced the new Osmo Pocket 3, one of the things that was quite surprising to me was the inclusion of a 1-inch sensor. And when I did some testing on this recently, I was really blown away with the picture quality from this tiny camera. So much so that I thought maybe this might just replace my ZV-1 as my go-to camera for YouTube content creation. And that's what we're going to be testing for in today's video. Now, clearly these two cameras are very different in their overall design. The Sony is much more of a conventional compact camera, which in addition to being a video camera is also a very capable stills camera. Whereas the DJI, the key focus is around the capabilities of its gimbal head here, including of course providing stable and smooth video, but also additional features like face and subject tracking, automated panorama shooting, motion time lapses, and things like that. But at their core, both cameras are clearly focused on providing high quality video content, and that's what we're really going to be testing in today's video. We're going to look at the video quality and also listen to the audio quality in a number of different filming scenarios in order to try to determine which one provides the highest quality. Now, of course, there is a lot to cover over the course of this video, so as usual, I will place the chapters up here so you can jump straight to the section or sections you are most interested in. Also, there will be some additional videos around the DJI Pocket 3 and the ZV-1 that I will be working on, so please remember to subscribe to the channel and remember to hit the notifications button so you can be notified whenever those new videos post. And before we get into it, the usual disclaimer, this video is not sponsored or paid for in any way. I purchased all of the products with my own money and the opinions are entirely my own. So let's get on with it. So for our first test, we are indoors, as you can see. I am being lit from above by a light fixture, and I also have a couple of key lights in front of me lighting me from the front also. Now, as far as the cameras are concerned, I have both set to fully automatic, automatic exposure, auto white balance. I have the normal or standard color profiles selected on both, and what we want to do here is just simply compare the image quality of the two. The other thing that I have enabled is on the Sony, I have it set at f1.8. The Pocket 3 has a fixed aperture of f2, so in theory, assuming my face is in focus, the background should be slightly defocused on both. That's the effect that I'm going for here. So again, let's just compare the picture quality of the two. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, I am using the onboard microphones of both. So right now you are listening to me on the onboard microphones of the Sony, and what I'll do now is switch over to the onboard microphones of the Pocket 3, and you can compare and contrast the audio quality between the two in this indoor studio type environment. So let me switch back over to the Sony, so once again you can hear the comparison between the onboard microphones of the two, and finally I'll just switch back to the Pocket 3 and give you a sense of the differences in the audio quality. Again, this is using the onboard microphones of both cameras. Okay, now I am using the wireless microphones for the two systems. So on the ZV-1 I have the DJI mic receiver plugged in, and on the Pocket 3 I simply turned on the included DJI Mic 2 wireless microphone that comes with the Creator Combo kit. So I guess the quality should be quite similar, but let's just do the test anyway. So currently you are listening to me on the wireless mic of the Pocket 3, and if I switch over to the ZV-1, now you are listening to me on the ZV-1 using, of course, the DJI mic system. So how is the audio quality? Is there much difference between the two? Let me switch back to the Pocket 3 so you can listen to the Pocket 3 for a moment more, and then finally I'll switch back over to the Sony. So now you're listening to me on the wireless mic connected to the Sony ZV-1. Okay, here I have stabilization turned off on the Sony in order to maximize the field of view, and you can see it's pretty shaky. But if we just focus on the image quality, you can see the sharpness and detail are pretty similar on both cameras. Now where the DJI really scores points is the contrast and dynamic range. You can see that on the Sony the sky is pretty blown out, whereas on the DJI you still see the full detail and colors around the treetops and the sky. Now if we turn on stabilization on the Sony, you can see that it crops in further on the image, but it definitely improves the shakiness. But it's still no match for the smoothness and stability of the DJI picture. Once again, you can also see the superior contrast and dynamic range on the DJI also. Now, this might be something of an unfair comparison, but I think it's worth mentioning. The DJI offers the ability to record at 60 frames per second, which you can then slow down to 30 frames per second in post to give you really smooth cinematic type footage. So now we are looking at selfie mode. I'm outside, as you can see. The wind has died down a little bit, so it's not as bad now. But right now let's start out by focusing on the video quality. Now I have the stabilization, the steady shot mode turned off on the Sony. Obviously it's always on the Pocket 3. And let's walk a little bit into the sun and see exactly how the camera copes with the sunlight. And of course, because the steady shot is turned off on the Sony, you'll probably see quite a bit of shakiness, but as you'll also see, the Sony has a narrower field of view, and if I turn the stabilization on, which I will do in just a moment, it will crop in even more. Now, as far as audio quality is concerned, right now I am using the onboard microphones of the two cameras themselves. Right now you are listening to me on the onboard microphones of the Pocket 3. And let's switch over to the onboard microphone of the Sony ZV-1 to compare what the quality of the onboard microphones of the two cameras sounds like. Let's switch back briefly to the Pocket 3. So now you are listening to me on the onboard microphones of the Pocket 3, and finally we'll switch back to the ZV-1 so you can compare the audio quality on both of the onboard microphones. So now I have turned on stabilization on the Sony, so as you can see the picture is cropped in considerably more than it was previously. but hopefully you should also see a reduction in the amount of vibration and shakiness as I move around. So once again, right now we are focused on the video quality, in particular the stabilization now being turned on both. Once again, I'm doing a little bit of wandering into the sunlight so you can see how each camera handles the strong contrast of sunlight and shadows. Hopefully this will be a good test of that. Now, as far as audio is concerned, I have now switched also to the wireless microphones. So in each case, I'll show you on the Sony here, my Pocket 3 is currently tracking my face, so it's difficult to see it. But here you can see the wireless microphones of each, so they're DJI microphones in both cases. So the quality should be quite similar, but it's also worth mentioning that I could connect the same DJI mic system that I'm using on the Sony also to the Pocket 3 if I needed to as well. So right now you are listening to me on the DJI Pocket 3 with its new DJI Mic 2 attached. So how is the audio quality there? If I switch over to the ZV-1, now the ZV-1 is using, as I mentioned, the DJI mic system, so the quality should be quite similar. And let's switch back over to the Pocket 3. So now you're listening to me on the Pocket 3 using its wireless DJI Mic 2. And finally, we'll switch back to the ZV-1. So you're now hearing me on the ZV-1 using the DJI mic system. Okay, in our final comparison test, we're going to look at the low light performance of the two cameras. In this particular clip, the sun has just gone down, it is dusk, and you can already see that the DJI is doing a much better job in terms of the contrast and the dynamic range. There's also quite a bit of noise in the Sony picture. And when it comes to complete darkness, you can see that the performance gap is even greater. While the Sony struggles to capture an image, you can see that the DJI continues to provide excellent contrast and dynamic range. So I've done a few of these comparison tests now, and I have to say this one has definitely been a surprise as far as the result was concerned. Now, there are a couple of important footnotes that I'll get to in just a couple of minutes, but when you look at the tests I set up using both cameras pretty much in their out-of-the-box configuration, I thought that the DJI would certainly give the ZV-1 a run for its money. What I did not expect was that the Pocket 3 really blew the ZV-1 out of the water in most of the tests that we did. Comparing the video quality of the two cameras, when it came to sharpness and detail in the image, I would say that there's not a great deal to choose between the two cameras, but that's pretty much where it ended. The DJI provided significantly better performance when it came to contrast, when it came to the dynamic range, the stability of the image, and the vastly superior low light performance. Not to mention, of course, that you have a built-in tracking capability that we did not really get into in this video, but it is something I plan to cover on a future video as well. But as I said, there are a couple of important footnotes that we should talk about. First, considering the ZV-1. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, I pretty much set both cameras to their fully automatic conditions. Now, when it comes to configurability, I do have to say that the ZV-1 offers a lot of different options and settings which are not available on the Osmo Pocket 3. And by fine-tuning these settings and configuration options, I'm sure you could improve the results somewhat. Also important to mention is that Sony did earlier this year release a Mark II version of the ZV-1, but if you go online and look at all the different reviews, you'll see that it really isn't much of an upgrade compared to the original version. They did make the widest angle of the lens a little bit wider, which might help with the stabilization, but at the same time they took away the in-body stabilization. So in all honesty, I wouldn't expect much difference between the video quality between the two cameras, but if you have different experience, please go ahead and add that into the comments section of the video. Now there is one aspect of the performance of the Pocket 3 that I wasn't completely happy with, and that is the audio performance. I found that regardless of whether I was recording using the onboard microphones or the wireless microphones such as I'm using right now, I always had to go in and boost the volume in order to get a comparable volume level as on the ZV-1, for example. Now, as I'm recording this conclusion, I have the gain of the microphone set to +8, which is almost as high as it will go. And if I drop the volume level to the default, what comes out of the camera, this is what it sounds like. So I have to boost that level up in my video editing software in order to get a reasonably audible volume. This is definitely something I plan to investigate further in a future video. So with all that said, we come to the end of our video. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and consider subscribing to the channel for lots more content on tech, travel and leisure. If you have any comments, if you have any suggestions for future videos, please drop those into the comments section also. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for watching.